I think obviously we're living in really challenging times. I feel like a number of things are really coming to the head. Probably number one, the whole situation around the earth and the environment and this, this container that's holding us all in our human journey, being the number one factor. But also more recently and in a certain way, perhaps it's just a blip on the landscape, or maybe it's going to turn into something really neat and exciting with the whole economic crisis that's going on. But I believe that we're here on the earth and we're all engaged in the evolution of consciousness. And that evolution of consciousness isn't a linear path. There's many, many forces at play, and there's numbers of things we could talk about, but in regards to what we're kind of focusing on today, a really big piece that I see is happening is coming into balance around the masculine and feminine. Some people would describe it that the last millennium has been the millennium of the masculine. And if we were talking about it in more critical terms, we'd say we've been living in a patriarchal culture. And that's a patriarchal culture that includes men and women. And whenever one thing is too separate and on its own doing its own thing, it inherently is imbalanced. And, some people would say, archaeologists, historians, whatever, that, the millennium before that was the millennium of the feminine. And so that has kind of been put aside, and then the masculine principles and the masculine energies have come to the fore, but in a way separate, without the feminine. And so now what I think, have an opportunity to do is to bring the two together, to bring it in balance. Of course, when we are in retreat, we talk a lot about, and people come to the retreat because they're interested in understanding. I mean, we're women and we're trying to understand what is the sacred feminine. And this is a reflection of just how far we've come from knowing that piece of the feminine, which is needed for both men and women. But I feel that because we're women, that we need to know it, we need to live it, we need to embody it, we need to be that presence in the world. And men need to as well, but in that they're men, and they need to also, their primary or presenting is the masculine. But if women don't know what it is, why should we expect the men to be like understanding it or getting on board? And so the retreats are an opportunity for a lived-in experience of this. At the retreats, I do a certain amount of teaching, but in this kind of work, teaching and that didactic, which in a certain way is kind of a masculine thing, it only goes so far. People have to have an experience of it. And in the retreat, we structure everything to help people have that experience. And so in the world right now, I see we have the opportunity to balance all the progress that has been made by us being in a masculine mode, which has been the development of science, the development of rational thinking, of logic, of being able to do things in a very direct, incremental, logical way, allows you to be very productive and very creative in a certain kind of way. But then when it takes on a life of its own and it's just production for the sake of production, or accomplishment for the sake of accomplishment, or accumulation for the sake of accumulation, it loses the piece that the feminine brings in, which is meaning and passion and the infiltration of spirit and guidance, and doing things not just because of accumulation of knowledge, but knowledge in conjunction with wisdom. When we think of a lot of things that have been created on this planet, and one that always comes to my mind is plastic. Well, anybody who was in wisdom would never have created something in that way. Perhaps it would have been another way that would have created so much devastation.